All right, what's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father. Amazon Kindle Create Space. The Blue Lives Matter Law. I saw the news story, and then Jay Miller Speaks Out made a video about it. So I'm kind of piggybacking off of that video, and just giving my thoughts. I think the law is going to be used in a diabolical way as a setup, in its practical application. You know, for one, the Blue Lives Matter law is basically some type of response to Black Lives Matter. That's why it's called the Blue Lives Matter law. So when people used to say all lives matter, and Black lives shouldn't matter more than anyone else's, to make a Blue Lives Matter law, it kind of says Blue Lives matter more than anyone else's, because if if you quote unquote resist arrest of a police officer, it's a hate crime. Well, so what if somebody beats up a firefighter? What if someone um, gets into a fight with a DEA or FBI agent, and they resist an arrest that way? What if somebody beats up a postal worker, FedEx driver? You know, in any other type of civil servant, that's not a hate crime. So that's a hypocrisy in that. The other thing about it is, to be a hate crime, you have to exhibit some type of hate towards the person that you're getting into it with. So if you're black, that's when the racial slurs come up. If you're non-white or white, the racial slurs come up. If you're homosexual, then the gay slurs come up. You know, so unless somebody's actually beating up a cop, calling them a pig or something, how would you know that they hate police? Moving a little bit further, there are numerous videos of police officers beating people, committing police brutality, police misconduct, and just abusing their power, beating on citizens, telling them to stop resisting arrest. And you can see on the tape that they're not. You can, they, you know, they technically, in some ways, told Eric Garner to stop resisting arrest when they was choking him to death. Like, just lay here and get choked to death. So now people can't fight for what they feel is their lives if they're in imminent danger, if you're getting assaulted by a police officer or killed by a police officer for a crime that might not even be a crime. You might not even get arrested for anything, or you might get a ticket, something that you get a ticket for. And along those lines, you know, I would bet that in the last 8 years, there's about maybe 4 or 5 black men who got, and black men and women who've gotten to, well, no, black men who've gotten to shootouts with the police. But there have been, in that same span, there's been at least over 60 white people who've shot at the police, who've actually killed officers. There's probably been 4 black guys and at least 60 white guys. I can pretty much bet that from all the videos that I see white citizens shooting at police, fighting police, um, actually resisting arrest, assaulting officers, they won't be charged with a hate crime. Because let's not forget, George Zimmerman assaulted an officer. He still was able to apply for the police force. But yeah, that was because his father was a judge. I get that. But don't think that's a privilege. Being white is a privilege. coupled with the fact that black males in particular get harsher sentences, long, get accused and convicted of more crimes than everybody else that commit the same crimes or don't commit the same crimes. So it's just a prison grab for the prison industry. And the reason I say that is because the drug the drug laws are changing because weed is becoming a norm for some odd reason, right? And you're not going to arrest white people for that because that's part of the stop and frisk, on again, off again process. The face of meth is usually is somebody white, but they're not going to make meth dealers the face of the drug dealers, so they're not going to attack them and quote unquote find them and arrest them because they're not black. The face of heroin that's become an epidemic is a white suburban face, and I'm sure the dealer is a white suburban person, but those people need help. They don't need to be in prison. So what's the only other way to get free labor is to lock people up for long periods of time for something, and this can be the something. I pulled him over on a traffic stop. I told him to get out of the car, and I jumped on him and told him he was resisting arrest, and he resisted arrest, so that's a hate crime against an officer, so give him 10 years. I mean, that's not a stretch. You've seen people get shot at traffic, black men get shot at traffic stop because the cops were nervous. And this is how wide the spectrum can go, because you go from people saying they're in fear for their lives to I'm in fear for my life already, and I pulled out this gun because I'm in fear for my life, and I shot guys because I was in fear for my life, to I'm arresting guys because I'm in fear for my life, and they're resisting while I'm beating them even though they're not resisting, because a lot of these beatings that went on camera, the very crime that these people were arrested for was resisting arrest, and the crime had to get thrown out because there was no initial arrest to be arrested for. But you put a black man in court when the Blue Lives Matter law, people are going to act like that doesn't exist. Like, what was the initial charge? Well, he's black. It's what it is. Being black means you resist arrest and you hate cops. And, that does it have to make sense? No. People will just say guilty. But the hypocrisy is going to be in the video, because they're going to either have to take these cameras off or just ignore the camera footage, which they ignore camera footage of killing black men, so why wouldn't they not ignore the camera footage of of cops beating people and just saying they resisted arrest when they just sitting there like this? Like, it's not gonna happen. On top of that, you're gonna have protests. Like Baltimore and Ferguson, they called them riots. DC was a protest. People forget when those bikers had that fight at Twin Peaks. That was just a fight. Just fighting a shootout between bikers. They were just nice American boys. People seem to forget about the Bundy situation where, what they did wasn't considered a hate crime or even treason, when it was. So we already see how these laws are going to play out, which is going to be a whole nother debacle. And because if you're not going to arrest white people for drugs, and you need to find somebody to get cheap labor for in prisons, and under this administration, you can see that they're gonna let a lot of white people off the hook for crime and arrest a lot of black people for crimes that don't exist. So I think it's just a law that they're gonna just use to get to kill people and put people in prison for things that don't even make sense. Because you're not gonna arrest heroin dealers, meth dealers. You can't arrest the weed guy because it's legalized. The white people doing it so much. The crack era is gone. So you got to fill them jails up somehow, right? So, which is going to create a bigger problem because they might actually create a hate towards the police, a bigger, a big powder keg. Let's just put it like that, because people are going to be make detective for doing this type of stuff. So that's all I'm saying. I'm out.